Last week you learned about ethos and pathos, and now we're going to talk about logos. Logos basically is using strong logic. One of the problems that my students often run into, however, when they want to talk about logos, is the first thing that comes to mind when they say logos is statistics. And when they want to show me in a paper that it had good logic, they'll point to the statistics and they'll say, this really proves it. Statistics can be examples of logos, but they are not the strongest or the most commonly used logos. In fact, articles or arguments will use logic whether or not they use statistics, and it can be very strong whether or not they're using statistics. So in this video, I'm going to talk to you about how to understand and talk about logos when you are writing your rhetorical analysis. So basically, logos can be broken down into claims, reasons, and assumptions. Every argument starts with a claim. There are several different kinds of claims. You could have a substance claim, such as what exists, what kind of stuff is it made of. You can have a value claim, is it good? You can have a policy claim. What should we do about it? Usually, in fact, arguments will progress through these different claims. So, for example, climate change, it started out as an argument about, is the climate changing, or a substance claim. Does climate change exist, and what is it made out of, or what is happening that's causing this climate change? After a number of people began to accept that climate change was happening, it started to be kind of a value claim. Is it good? Can good come out of it? People decided no, and now many people are arguing about policy. What should we do about it? What kind of regulations should we implement so that we can, mitigate the effects of climate change? That's kind of a controversial example that I'm using because there are people who are not in the policy argument. They're still in the substance argument. They're still questioning whether or not it actually exists. And that's something that you need to be aware of whenever you recognize the claim or create a claim for an argument. Depending on your audience, they might be ready to talk about value or policy, or they might still be on substance. Another problem my students have sometimes when they write argument papers is they will want to make a value claim, but in that particular thing, there is already consensus. Everyone already agrees that the thing they want to talk about is either good or bad. And when that happens, I tell them, well, you can't make a value claim because there's already consensus on that topic, but you can make a policy claim. You could say, what should your audience do about it? So that's kind of how the basic types of claims work. This is, in rhetoric studies, this is called stasis theory. So if you want to read more about this, Purdue Howell has a really good explanation. They actually call substance definition claims, and they call value, I think, quality claims. But basically, it's the same thing. I just use different words. So this is what it would look like if you went to the Purdue Owl. It talks about stasis theory, and it gives examples. It even says the types of questions that you might ask if you are making or identifying one of these claims. Okay, so once you know what the primary claim of an argument or an article is, it's time to identify the reasons. Reasons can be classified in the same ways as claims. You can have a substance reason, a value reason, or policy reason. So here's an example. We should all go to college because we should learn as much as we can. That is a policy claim. We should all go to college, supported by a policy reason. We should learn as much as we can. A lot of people would consider this to be not a very strong argument because your audience may not agree with the policy reason. However, if your audience does agree, you could probably make that argument successfully. Perhaps a better way to go about making this argument might be, we should all go to college because college allows us to gain experience in several different fields before entering the job market. So we have the same policy claim, but now I'm giving a different kind of reason. I'm saying because the nature of college is gaining experience in different fields. That also has some underlying assumptions, but if my audience accepts them, I'm making a much stronger argument because my reason is more fundamental or more basic. There are also different ways that you can explain the reasons that people give, and here they are. Generalization: if a sample group has X trait, then the bigger group has X trait. An analogy means X and Y are similar enough that if X has Z traits, then Y has Z traits. A sign: X means that Y is the case. So for example, if there's smoke, there's fire. Causality means X caused Y, or Y is the consequence of X. So if a sign is, if there's smoke, there's fire, causality would be something like fire causes, or fire, like a fire on my book caused it to burn up or something. An argument by authority, or using authority as my reason, would be if an expert on a given issue says X, then X is probably true. And then an argument by principle, and some people do this as well: X is true, just, or moral. We see all of these kinds of reasons very frequently in the articles that we read, the shows that we watch, and even in commercials. However, even though all of these reasons can be used in good ethical ways, they are also often used as fallacies. So instead of making a good, strong generalization that you could make, you might make a hasty generalization. Instead of a good, strong analogy, you might make a false analogy. Instead of an argument by sign, you might have a non sequitur, which means, non sequitur literally means doesn't follow. So if there's smoke, there's fire, that's a pretty good sign that you can recognize. But you would see, for example, if you look at the 7-Up commercial, it says 7-Up makes you bubbly. So 7-Up makes you happy and kind. That's a non sequitur because 7-Up is not actually a sign of being bubbly and kind. It's still funny though. In fact, a lot of commercials use logical fallacies on purpose because they're funny. That will be the same with the FedEx Super Bowl commercial. It's funny because it's a non sequitur. Causality. So post hoc ergo propter hoc is a logical fallacy that we see frequently. It's explained really well in this West Wing clip, so I'll let you watch that. And you could also have a false authority, like Tom Cruise giving you advice on psychiatry. He's not a psychiatrist, so even though he says something and he's an authority in some things, he's not an authority in psychiatry. So these are all examples of logical fallacies you might use. I'll make this PowerPoint available to you so you can watch these on your own. Okay, so every argument has an implied assumption. Back to the one about everyone going to college. We should all go to college because college allows us to gain experience in several different fields before entering the job market. The implication is that everyone needs experience in different areas in order to choose the right job. I personally think that's a fairly valid argument, but there may be people who don't accept it. Another implication might be that graduating high school students don't already have enough experience to make a good career decision. So those are the implicit assumptions. Whenever I give any kind of reason, there will be implicit assumptions. And so one of your goals as you're doing your rhetorical analysis will be to identify the implicit assumptions and explain why or why not the audience accepts those assumptions. So, as I've talked about in previous lectures, it all comes down to audience. If you want to make a strong argument, one of the things that you should do is recognize what your audience believes or values. This is similar to the writing activity that I asked you to do last week about convincing a judge, your parents, or a teacher, or no, it's a friend, a judge, your parents, or a friend, that you shouldn't be punished for whatever you did. You knew what they believed or what they valued, and so you would have tailored your argument to them. What do you want? So you want to ask yourself, what do you understand about your audience based on their background or your shared experiences that can help you tailor your logic or your reasons to their needs? If an audience accepts the implicit assumptions of an argument, they consider it strong. If they reject the implicit assumptions, they consider it a weak argument. So I'll give you a couple of examples. The first one is an argument that I want to make. English 1010 makes you smarter because it teaches you things you didn't know before. So this is a substance claim. English 1010 makes you smarter. And the reason I give is that it teaches you things you didn't know before. There are lots of ways to attack this claim, and I'm not going to outline them right now, but I'm identifying the type of claim and the type of reason. So this is a substance claim with a substance reason. I could go on and make a quality claim. If English 1010 makes you smarter, it must be good. So English 1010 is good becomes a value claim. And the fact that it makes you smarter, if you accepted the previous claim, that becomes your substance reason. So that is the first example. The second one and third one are both value claims. First-person shooter video games are bad because they normalize violence. There have been lots of studies that show that first-person shooter games like Halo normalize violence. So I'm making a claim, a value claim, with a substance reason. First-person shooter video games are good because they improve spatial perception. There are actually studies that show this as well. So that's another value claim with a substance reason. And then the final one is an example of a policy claim. You should reuse towels at a hotel because it will help conserve water. Helping conserve water is also a substance reason, and the implicit assumption here is that conserving water is good and that that's something that we want to do. If so, with any one of these, you would want to choose a reason that the audience accepts the implicit assumption, and then it would be judged to be a strong argument. When you write your rhetorical analysis, that's what you're going to do in your logos section of your paper. You're going to go into the article that you're analyzing, and you're going to say, this is their main claim, or this is one of their claims. And you'll say it's a policy, it is a value claim, or it's a substance claim. And then you'll go and you'll explain some of their reasons. And then always you want to tie it back to the audience. You'll say the audience would have accepted this claim, like the primary audience would have accepted this claim because they have this core belief or they have this core value. And if you do that in your logos paragraph, I will consider it to be a very strong paragraph. If you have questions about this, please email me, especially as you start writing that paper. Some of these concepts you are probably not familiar with, and so I want you to contact me so I can help you if you reach a point where you get confused or have any questions. So thank you very much for watching this video, and I hope everything goes well for you this week.